All right. So yeah, this is the Golden Hour Security Homeschool Protocol Workshop. I go by the name of Bro Cauz, the creator of the Golden Hour. Our purpose is to allow our people to see through their own eyes to find their own solutions. And the Golden Hour means that it is the Golden Hour is the point at which a person has the highest chance of survival or death. And currently, our people are in a situation where we are in our final hour. Not saying it in an apocalyptic or, Book of Revelation sense, but in a sense of us, really having to make a choice. And it's like a fork in the road moment. And so that's what we're about. We provide workshops, homeschool assistance and consultation, and a lot of other cultural competent services. Again, if you ever want to contact me related to the services we provide, you can reach me at goldenhoureducation@gmail.com. And so we're just going to get started. Again, this is about the African Center Homeschool Safety Protocol. It's something that I actually created after, some years after actually beginning to homeschool my child. Now, recently there was an article out related to a sister who had been attempting to homeschool her children, and her children were taken from her. All right. Now, in the event section of this particular discussion, you can find a link in case you haven't been exposed to that particular article. I did start a blog site where I'll be posting articles related to education for the most part and our people. And so you can also go to the Golden Hour Collective at blogspot.com. All right, so just give me one moment. I'm pulling some information up about the article itself. It was kind of shown and then disappeared pretty quickly. I think most people dealt with the shock and not necessarily possible solutions or ways to avoid the particular situation the sister went through. So let me just pull this article up here. All right. Just waiting for it to load. And so the title, irregardless of where the source is related to this particular story, the title starts off with single mother attempting to homeschool, has her children taken away. And a lot of discuss from different agencies, news organizations, activists, political personalities, but I don't think at this point the sister has yet to receive her children back. And so let me just share some parts of this article. Again, you can pull the link up from the events portion of this discussion. Now, Sierra, are you there?
Yep, I'm here.
All right. Did you hear anything about this particular article?
I read the article.
All right. What was your perspective on the situation for the sister?
I was tagged in it because a lot of people know that I homeschool, and so they tagged me, I guess, to, say like, what's going on, and the first thing that came to my mind was, where's her circle? Like, where are her friends? Where's her group? Where's her, her support system? I personally did not like the fact that they tried to make it out to be like some single parent, worst nightmare. To me, it just read like it was a scare tactic to kind of frighten people away from homeschooling, and that is the part that disgusted me, because homeschooling is not that hard. But honestly, my first thoughts were, where's her circle, where's her friends, where's her support system, and why are they trying to point out that she's a single mother?
Okay. All right. Thank you for sharing that. I'm gonna speak just a little bit on the article. Again, the article is based on I don't know how to pronounce her name. You know how you don't want to mess a person's name up. I'll just say Ms. Harris. It states she hasn't seen her 2 young children in 3 weeks. That's because authorities took the single mother's elementary school-aged kids away from her and put them in foster care. And after New York's Buffalo Public School District acknowledged in writing to Harris that it had received their letters of intent to homeschool her children, they still had decided to take her children. Ms. Harris said she felt the district was failing her children, and that's when she made the decision to homeschool. Ms. Harris showed, let's see, the news, this thing is kind of, okay, so Ms. Harris showed the documents she filed at the Buffalo City Hall informing the district of her intent to homeschool her children. She had a stamp stating it was received on December the 7th, 2016. She also showed the station a letter she received from the school district's homeschooling coordinator, also dated December 7th. It states, well, she later said she spoke directly to the homeschool coordinator and that she had told her from this point on her children were officially unenrolled from the school. So she also got official notification from the school district as well. And then so it says things got a little bit strange. Ms. Harris told the station Child Protective Service a week later, wondering why her children weren't in school. She received a message from Child Protective Services related to why her children weren't in school. She stated, I told them my children were homeschooled now and that I could furnish the documents if they needed to see them. Again, so we're going to get a little bit deeper into this, but when someone initially questions you about homeschooling and you've already been authorized to do so, there's no need for you to continue a conversation or show any documentation. My initial suggestion would have been to inform the Child Protective Service that you get a lawyer versus give them anything, okay? Anything you give them can be used as a tool to weaken your case to protect your children. And so the article further states that she told the station that less than a month after CPS officials and police confronted her and said that they had a court order to take her children. Okay, so a month after she initially showed the documents proving that she can homeschool her children, there was a court order filed. She stated she asked to see the court order, and when that didn't happen, she refused to give up her kids. So she said she was arrested for obstruction, and her children were placed in foster care. But in the video Harris posted to Facebook on January 18th, she said she was handed a court order noting charges of neglect. Okay, and that's in quotations. A lot of times, the easiest way to bring a family to court is with accusations of neglect. Most of the time, people think of neglect as somebody having physical harm caused to them. Well, neglect can be applied in any form or fashion related to how the state sees it. So, for example, when you're black and you're homeschooling, you're generally going to be accused of educational neglect, meaning they're accusing you of impairing your child's mental growth by educating your child from home. And that's literally what it means. And so there's other forms where, it might be a matter of sanitary conditions, things like that. There's those types of neglect and so forth. But in this case, and in most cases where they will attempt to get custody of your children, the charge of neglect is going to be educational neglect. And so most of the times I would suggest if you do have any types of state services being provided to you, that you stay up to date on visits to the doctor. Even if you don't get vaccinated, it still pays to show your face, all right? So that there's record that you are participating at the least, all right? And so moving further, Buffalo Councilman Ulysses Wingo Sr. is calling on family court to return Harris' children to her immediately. Now, this was reported in a separate story, okay? So what happens is a lot of times when we have these types of challenges, we go looking for help and find that most people aren't qualified to help us. at least when it relates to being black and attempting to do something different than most people that look like us do. So most black people are not confident in homeschooling their children, so they send their children to the public school system and deal with the repercussions. All right. Now, when you choose to homeschool your child, you're kind of saying something a lot different, and it's really threatening when you consider you're gonna teach your children your ways of life without the influence of people who you have no connection to, really. All right. And so Mr. Wingo added that it's utterly unacceptable that a mother was arrested for educational neglect because she decided to homeschool her children. And so now that's more so like the political correct way to approach this. If you have this type of issue and you're going to bring it to, let's say, clergy members and things like that, you're going to get a lot of prayers for you. You know, a lot of people aren't qualified to directly influence the system. And so the most important thing I recommend is educating yourself and using resources like the ones I have, but really educating yourself on the history of these types of interactions. So you got to look at how other people protect their children when they decide to homeschool them, and that's across every race. All right. Most cases I would recommend are Christian-based homeschools. A lot of Christian-based homeschools have some very good ideas as to how to go about homeschooling their children and preserving whatever culture they want to influence the children with. And so that's a good way to look at how you want to run yours structurally. It's a self-contained environment. So that's pretty much the bottom line with that. But when you're usually looking for help, you're not going to find it immediately. You might then go to a lawyer. If you have the money, you can pay a lawyer. You can pay a lawyer and have them request information from the Department of Child Protective Services, at least so you know what your charges might be if you're having information withheld from you. A lot of times when they come in contact with you with paperwork or just questions, you might ask, what are you being accused of? At that point, they usually decline to share that information or give you very limited information. Now, if they're going to give you limited information, then you shouldn't give them a lot of information, all right? You really shouldn't be giving them any information. But we'll get to that when we discuss the 10-point plan. Sister Sierra, you had any questions or comments so far?
Now, I'm agreeing with everything you're saying. And, I have a lot of experience as far as dealing with the state. Even with them, questioning about homeschooling, I'm glad that I had you there, but I was able to just nip it in the bud. My reply, honestly, I'm in, the state of Connecticut, where by law up here, whether your child is in school or not, you are by law responsible for educating your child alone, and that I'd love to put that in their face. So I'm only following the same laws that you gave me. You know what I'm saying? And so when I was questioned about homeschooling my children, I was just able to tell him that, this is the website. You go there. You look it up. If you find something and you feel big and bad enough to come and challenge me about it, then you try and do that. But just understand that I'm ready. You know what I'm saying? So definitely, you really and honestly, you don't owe them anything. It is your child. You're deciding to educate them. I mean, of course, be smart about what it is that you're doing, but the less information you give them, the better. Point them into the direction of where you found the information so that they can go and educate themselves. And what I found from the work is that they was lazy and they just wanted to see if I was going to, say something. I'm pretty sure they didn't even go look at the website, at all. But it just helps to know exactly what the state law requirements are and know them word for word so that if anybody asks you or challenges you on anything, you can fight back with what is already there. And that's all.
All right, and thank you for saying that. They are definitely lazy. You said a key point. Redirect them. If they're focused on getting information out of you, redirect them in another direction so that they can have something else to preoccupy themselves with. Usually that's going to be educating themselves, like you said. They're not prone to do what, let's say, a potential client is suggesting to them. You know, they don't have any direct connection to you. You don't know these people prior to them coming to you and attempting to get some information on you. All right? I'm going to continue on with the articles because there's some really key points in here that are extremely important. The Buffalo councilman also said someone somewhere messed up. Okay? So we have two points that he's made. It's utterly acceptable and someone somewhere messed up. The idea that it's wrong for the system to take your children is wrong in a perfect world, you know. In the real world, it is policy, and that's what allowed for them to carry out the process the way they did. There's something that she allowed that opened them up to actually having her children. And I think strongly about that because there's some aspects of the article where it's obviously unfortunate, but there's just something not being said. And so I think part of the article might go into that, but there's another part that I have viewed related to this case, and that was they were trying to accuse her of not having custody of her children, you know. And so that's even more extreme but more relevant as to why we have to be aware of the laws and what our status in the society is. And that's not an argument on that's only an argument for a person who doesn't understand that we're at war, okay? And deciding to educate your children is an act of war against the system. So that's just bottom line. And so let's continue on. Let's see. So the councilman also said someone needs to face the music. I'm speaking on what the councilman is saying because it's not that the gentleman isn't aware of the injustice against his sister. It's he's in a position of where he has no power. You know, he's sitting at the council at a council meeting. He's bringing this up, but there's nothing he can do outside of just speaking at how wrong it is, which I think is something that people knew about before he even said anything. You know, and that's our dilemma. We can't continue to allow European ways of solving our solutions to be the only thing we use as an option, you know. That's like saying, well, if we voted, this wouldn't happen. That's not true. You know, there's no way you could prevent the possibility of this happening with us being where we're at here. Okay. All right, and so this is a key point that the Buffalo School District told the news station, and that was a parent must have full custody of children in order to file for homeschooling. But Harris countered that she's always had full custody of her children until Child Protective Services took her children away. All right, now I'm going to give you a big tip, okay? When a child is born between a mother and father, if they're not married, okay, custody is legally split between both parents. All right? That's the segue of what they're using to justify it within the context of saying that she had to have full custody. So as to say, if the father wasn't involved and didn't approve of it, that gives the state to fill in for him and keep her from violating the law, which is she should have full custody of her children. Now, in personal experiences I've had, what I would say, if you have joint legal custody of a child and you're the single parent, I would suggest first informing the other parent that you intend on homeschooling your child, whether they agree with it or not. Okay?
I have a question.
Because yes.
With that, because prior to me getting married, I was a single parent. And I just remember thinking, and maybe it was just me thinking ahead of the time, but if I'm not going to be with that person, and not everybody has that chance to understand that sometimes, you know what I'm saying, you think it's going to work out, and, you know, you put his name on a birth certificate. But I did not put my oldest son's father's name on a birth certificate. Does that help?
Yeah, that does. That will keep you from having to allow him to be involved. You know, basically, if he's not playing a direct role in the education of your child, you should have the right to educate or homeschool your child. Period. That's why I said if you have the opportunity, meaning just so you don't have somebody using that as an excuse to get something they otherwise wouldn't have been thinking about as a way to take advantage of you or your children. Meaning sometimes other parents might not agree with homeschooling, and so they might want that to stop, but don't have the access to cause that type of disruption. So let's say Child Protective Services taking your children or trying to start a case with you, is going to be important that you understand where that person stands with you. Meaning, are they malicious? Are they going to cause you harm? Are they going to try to sabotage you with the state? Those types of things you got to consider. Okay. That's what I'm saying. Because, for example, let's say her children right now are still in Child Protective Service, right? And the father wasn't involved, but now because it's happened, the father shows up, and he's saying, well, she doesn't have full custody because I got joint custody because we weren't married and we had 2 children together. Then he's just as entitled to take custody of those children from Child Protective Services as she is. And his case actually would work in his favor because she's the one being investigated, not him. You understand what I'm saying? So they got a lot of different angles on how they can get their hands on your child. And so it's important you just try to communicate with not just the other parent. Communicate with other family members, both sides. If there's people that are involved in your child's life. Because the last thing you need is family turning on you, and then you got a lifelong vendetta and shit, you know. And it's justified. You know what I'm saying? There's nothing you can do about it, but you're not gonna mess with that person anymore because of what the possibility was that you were glad to have prevented, but you could have prevented if they just hadn't had certain involvement with you, you know. So some things you should keep secret. You know, so, you know, if you decided to homeschool, there's some aspects of, like, let's say your curriculum and stuff. I don't suggest sharing your whole curriculum ideas with people. You know, share methods, but don't give, you know, copies of what you're doing to Child Protective Services, for example. If they're saying, you know, are you homeschooling, we want proof of that, you don't have to provide them proof of nothing but the document that says you withdrew your children for homeschool. You know, a lot of times they'll say, well, what kind of curriculum are you teaching them? What type of history are you teaching them? Where are they at in math? That's none of their business. None of their business. Because when you decide to homeschool and you actually get them out to school legally, you become the administration. So the same way that a school system functions, you function. And the school system is not going to tell you everything about what their internal plans and processes are. So you don't do this. You don't do the same thing. Period. You don't do that. You don't share it. So is that the end of the article? That's the end of the article. And I'm going to get started with the actual 10 steps. And so again, this is the African Center Homeschool Safety Protocol. The purpose is to provide important information for black families as it relates to your child at home being an act of war. Your child being educated at home being an act of war to the system of white supremacy. I had to emphasize the system of white supremacy because the unfortunate situation with the sister, she might not have been aware that there is a system of white supremacy. There might be an aspect of parenting where you might say, well, the school's not good for my child, but you don't relate it to white people. You know, you might just say it's the building or the rules there. It might not be white people as a society. It might not be white ideology. All right, so let's go on to step 1. Step 1, do not allow or invite any state agencies into your home once you have officially signed your child out of the system legally. Okay? Key words, legally. Okay? You want to limit how much they want to stay involved with you. Okay? So one of the best things to do is get the documentation. You know, you plan out the day you want to withdraw your children, meaning you got the checkups set up already. They might have already had their dental checkups and those types of things, so that when you pull them out, you limit the amount of red flags that could possibly pop up. All right, that's extremely important. Now, another part of Part 1 states, in the event you receive food stamps or medical assistance from the state, you and your family are considered pseudo wards of the state prisoners, which to them will always be the reason if you feel investigating is not justified. So you say, well, I don't think there's anything going on here. You need to leave me alone. You don't have any right to do this. I haven't done anything wrong. To them, you don't have a voice. It's why are you questioning them? You understand? Why are you questioning them? So that's what's meant by that part. It states if you do not receive these services, it limits in some cases how aggressive state companies may be. Okay? Some examples of state companies are Police Department, Department of Social Services, Department of Children and Family, the Board of Education, et cetera, et cetera. Now, this is saying that it doesn't matter what class you're a part of. It don't matter if you're black and middle class. It doesn't matter if you're a black millionaire, because black millionaires get their kids taken. You get what I'm saying? For different reasons, but we're speaking on education. And so it's not a matter of class. It's more so about your culture, you know. And we'll get into that a little farther, but usually if a person has money, they might have something outside of their home where it allows their child to be educated, not necessarily in their home. So there might be a homeschool co-op that has a building. Things like that might assist a person in trying to keep child protective services away from their actual home. Okay, so that's something to consider if you're not really into possibly educating your own. You might want to join a co-op of local parents or create one yourself. Step 2, document all interactions with any state agencies, the time of day, month, and as many detailed reports of what they are asking for or are interested in. So this is about literally, when we're talking about Steve Coakley, the ancestor, we're talking about really paying attention to what white people say, okay? It's not just a matter of you feeling attacked by them trying to take your child or asking you questions. You got to understand it's warfare. So do you give yourself away if the person on the opposite side is trying to kill you? No. You want to really prolong that so you can figure out a way to maybe get yourself out the situation or prevail and being the aggressor and winning that fight. You get what I'm saying? And so that goes even with them coming up to your doorstep. All right, so when you talk about having a conversation with a person, I would recommend if someone comes to your door you don't know and they're asking questions, you give them a pause. You say, I need to get a pen and paper really quickly. You go get a pen and pad really quickly. This is something I've done.
I was about to say, keep it at the doorway. Keep it at the doorway. The same way that they tell you to keep a pen and a paper at the phone. You keep a notebook. As soon as you know what I'm saying? That's why I remember I moved somewhere and I didn't have a peephole. I asked that one be installed so that I can see. And so every time that I would see them there, I'll make sure to go get a pen and paper. Or in one case, in which I had to, allow them inside for a little bit, I had to make them as uncomfortable as they made me. So every time, you ask some questions and you write it down. Well, I have my things. I have my questions that I need to ask, and I need to write down my your answers as well. And you're going to answer me just like you need me to answer you. You want to answer for me, you answer everything that I said. So I do agree that you do need to write down everything that they ask you.
Mm-hmm. Everything. Okay, so if you got a memory problem, perfect. I need to get my notebook. I'll be right back. Right back. Don't go anywhere. Don't go anywhere. Don't make it a matter of letting them think you're – there's different ways you can approach it. You can approach aggressively and say, well, get the fuck off my porch. You can do that. That doesn't mean they're going to leave. They're going to come back even harder. They might create false information on you to justify them coming back since you shoo them away.
And a lot of times you do not have to allow them inside your door. There was plenty of times, I don't care, you wait here, I'll get a coat. But we can sit outside. You're at the house. You don't have to be in my house. And that's one of the things that I do like about up here that I understood is that by law they do not have to come in your house unless it's a court order that they have to be there. But if it's not some court papers, you don't have to let them in your house because while they're there, that's when they can find things. They could just say out the blue, well, her house was nasty or his house was not clean, and you know that's not the way that you hold your house. So guess what? You never even saw the inside of my house. We're going to sit outside on the porch, on this swing or on this bench, and you're going to ask me questions, and guess what? If you're cold, so what?
Yep. And you just said that if they're cold, so what? You want to make these people uncomfortable, all right? Now, we're not just talking about DCF. We're talking about any state-affiliated representative. You get what I'm saying? That means if they appoint a lawyer to your child, meaning, you know, let's suppose they don't get your child but they appoint a lawyer, then the basis for which that lawyer interacts with you is up to you. You know, you can have the lawyer.
Officers as well. You don't have a warrant to come in my house.
Yep. Now, if they suggest you go to the police department, you never go. That's just something that's just literally, you know, it's to make you think that it's more serious than what you might already know it is. So you don't want to play into that. You don't want to play into looking guilty for something you might not have done, because you might not know what the case is they're building against you, that they're making up. So you don't want to do anything that says, hey, man, maybe they're right, even though you're not aware of what they're trying to do. So that's important. It's a must to have a paper trail and digital footprint if they do not account for your level of knowledge of their methods and tactics. So if you want to play stupid, it's going to play for your benefit, you know. When we're talking about having a paper trail and digital footprint, we're talking about using an email, okay? A person could show up to your doorstep. I've had this experience myself. Someone shows up to your doorstep. They want to communicate with you. You say, you know, I'm busy. What you can do is you can email me or provide me your card so I can email you. Okay, once you have a point of contact, that eliminates any physical contact you have to have with a state agency. Okay, and so we're talking about when we're talking about logging information, about all interactions with the state agencies, we're saying that if you use an email, it does it all for you.
It does. The only thing you have to do, I'm telling you, that's every single email that comes in from them, you just create a folder. You can call it dumbass, stupid people, whatever you want to name it. Just have a folder, and every single email that comes, before you even open it, just click it to go into that folder. So that way, every single email, you do one click, and you see everything that's up, every conversation between them and you.
Yeah, and that's extremely important. You know, think about back in the day when they show up to your doorstep and they're mailing letters and stuff like that. Now it's all cyber. So there's even aspects where, and I'll get into this, where I personally have emailed the director of the state for Child Protective Services in Connecticut based on what I was going through, right? Just to set up a point of contact with her as well. You know what I'm saying? Just to make sure it's known I'm serious and I'm not fucking playing. You know. Peace, Brother Dondre. All right. And so, yeah, that's extremely important. You know, you don't want to get cocky because, you know, they're recording the communications just as well. So usually when they're first sending people out to you, they might be sending somebody who just graduated college, might have just got their MSW. You know, they're trying to make a name for themselves, or they might be they might be those bleeding heart professionals where they're young and really don't have enough wisdom to know how the world works, so they're going by the book. You really want to X that person out. You know, you want to deal with a supervisor or a manager. Okay. Now, there's a way to kind of build a case for yourself where if you document the information from, let's say, the pawn, that's what I call the lower level DCF workers. When you're dealing with the pawns, their information is going to work against the supervisor or the manager, because you're going to use that as to say, well, hey, this person told me this, or this person told me that. If it gets to a point where you're being submitted to court, those things show up and benefit you in court, okay? because you have a literal conversation and dialogue that allows for it to show that they're contradicting themselves. All right. I like to piss them off, but I'm not suggesting that. All right, so we're gonna go to number 3. Number 3 for me, I think should have been number 1, but again, it all plays into the whole system. You have to create an evacuation and emergency plan for your children. You want to designate individuals whom you trust and whom your children can stay with in the event you need to hide them. I recommend more than 3 residences. All right, so first we're going to start with the evacuation and emergency plan for your children. Now, homeschooling your children is in an African-centered context is about letting them know they're at war. So your children are going to be willing and ready to prepare themselves for any type of thing that's going to disrupt your family. And so that's where the fun is involved in such a serious situation. All right? So you want to do dry runs, when it's raining outside or if it's snowing, things like that. Those are the best times to practice because those are the types of things you might find yourself being tripped up, slipped up, or being seen. If you have children in the house, it's definitely fun, and I definitely suggest you teach them or let them practice stealth on each other. Okay, so that's like if it's dark out, everybody watching a movie and stuff, and you got one hiding behind the couch. That's all good. You know what I'm saying? When we're talking about an evacuation plan, it's just like it's not like a fire drill. I'm saying it like this: a fire drill usually tells you got an exit here, you got an exit there. It's about getting the hell out the building. When we're talking about an emergency plan related to homeschool, you got to have hiding spots and things like that as well. If you don't have the time to get out the house, you need to know how to hide. You need to know what point of vision people have from outside into your home. Those things are important. Okay. When we're talking about emergency surveillance, just as much if they're already, as far as the level at which I was dealing with it, when you see that they're surveilling your home, you have to be surveilling them as well. You have to have people in your community that you trust, keep an eye on where the DPs are, where the units are, where's the walk-in beat cops at, all those types of things. Who comes and knocks at your door when you're not home? Okay, is that serious? So when we're talking about designated individuals whom you trust and whom your children can stay with in the event you need to hide them, and recommending more than 3 residences. If you got that many more people you can trust, the more the merrier, okay? In my experience, I had to have my son held at a secure residence and moved around for almost 2 weeks, okay? So we're talking about having a residence. We're talking about people who can, if the state agencies approach them, know to not snitch. You get what I'm saying? Those are the type of people you want. I have many occasions where my son might have been in the house of the residence that he was stationed at, and the dialogue with them allowed for there to be no suggestion or hint that my son was actually there. You get what I'm saying? So you want to keep them confused as to where you frequent. They will trail and tail your cars. They will tail and trail your friends as well. Phone taps as well. Again, this is all about keeping them from getting your child. See, the situation with the sister happened where they had gotten her child, so they had a way. There was something that allowed for them to get her children. This is to try to prevent this from happening. And so, again, back to step 1, when we're talking about dealing with you initially starting the homeschool. You want to talk to your family and friends. You don't want to give them all of the information related to maybe your purposes if they don't align with your ideology, but you still want to figure out and weed out who possibly could snitch on you and who possibly is going to be with it, or just leave it alone and let you do what you're doing. I think that's extremely important. Some people you love the most might do things by mistake out of ignorance, and that might cause you to lose your child. And that's how real it is. It says, in the event law enforcement attempts to enter your home, and especially if you find your home being watched, this is extremely important, okay? It's also, you also want to have practice runs of emergency evacuations with your children involved as early as 5 years old. If you have some sprinkled out, you teach the middle one how to to support the bigger one. You get what I'm saying? And the little one has, knows which one to hold on to based on what certain situations may arise. So you might do fence jumping. You might want to make certain little, if you had a backyard with neighbors and stuff like that, you might want to make a trap door in the corner of your yard that connects different fences and yards. We did that. You always want to have those types of things to assist you in getting your child to a safe space. Something else to say. You want to have, when we're talking about having people watching your home for you while your home's being watched, those are going to be the people that are going to help hurry your child away from the radius of where the heat is at. Okay? And that's been attested. I've had that happen many times. You test that and it's proven. If you're already prepared, treating this like a warfare environment and situation, your children are going to come out of it 100% of the time. Your goal is to really get your children away, because you're going to deal with whatever you need to deal with. It's about getting them to a safe space, because you know what it is if the enemy gets your children in your hands. You know what I'm saying? And it is a reality that they will try to get custody of your children. The goal of this step is to prevent that. Okay? Give me a second. Let me have a sip of this coconut water real quick. If anybody wanted to comment, you're welcome to do so. If not, I'm gonna hydrate and continue on. Let's see. We'll go to step 4. Yeah, I did mention this already. Step 4, communicate by way of email to set a physical boundary between you and the system representatives. It holds them accountable, and email always shows accurate records, time, date, point of contact. Keep in mind it can be submitted in for lawsuit purposes in the event rights violations occur. All right? Most people don't sue back the state, and this is just a side note because they have a high level of immunity. When I mentioned that I had emailed the director of the State Department of Children's Services, she didn't have any regard for my situation. You get what I'm saying? That actually inclined them to further attempt to build a case against me for educational neglect. And so it says here, number 5, although they may seem genuine, this is white supremacy. They came to take us from our land with smiles. The idea that you need permission to educate your own children, especially when you're Black African, is against your right to self-determination. In 2014, the United States was 36 in the world as it relates to education systems. Europeans are not the standard human, nor hold the monopoly on education and knowledge on the planet. I'm saying that because although I stated the fact about being number 36, there's a level of ignorance in thinking that because it exists, it's justified. And that kind of affects us with the level of fear we have when it comes to not trusting ourselves to educate our children. Kind of like white supremacy is embedded in our minds, so it's to the degree of which, white supremacy in the United States education system's 36th in the world at one point, and I'm saying beyond college. We're talking about the high-level institutions to the bottom. That was a global ranking. We have to do better for ourselves, and anything better than 36 is suitable. You get what I'm saying? And so there's somewhere in between there where we definitely can find ourselves as a people representing our high level of knowledge and sophistication. All right? So that's my comment related to number 5. And let's go down or scroll. Anybody want to comment on anything I've said so far? See, Brother Dondre's up. Let's see, you got the chat thing up there. All right, so number 6. You want to limit the amount of information you share. This is extremely important. It's easy to get put into a corner. If you find yourself trying to do the right thing, which I suggest is homeschooling, and you might have 3 weeks into it or 4 weeks like the sister did, and someone comes up to you saying that they, they have a court order to stop you or to take your children, that's immediately going to be a trigger for fear. So it's definitely understanding on how a person could want to share information thinking that it's going to actually protect them when it sets them up. And so number 6 is important. It says limit the amount of information you share about what you're doing with people who do not identify with your goals or your culture. When we're talking about African-centered homeschooling, I consider African-centered homeschooling black people not educating themselves in the context of Europeans. So you find in any African home that is homeschooling that they have their own style and culture on how they go about doing what they're doing. And that's what we're entitled to do. And we're not giving ourselves an opportunity to do when we're sending our children to the school system. If your circle of friends and family choose not to be involved in supporting you, it's a must. You make sure you can gauge what you can or can't trust them with without due to ignorance. Okay, so lack of information and understanding is one of those things that will always come back to bite you in the ass. If you want or you have good relationships with your family members that might not be 100% on board, it's suggested that you look up different things that can help them understand the benefits of homeschooling for your child. Us being black folks, if you can get grandma or auntie or uncle looking at some black literature related to education, that's a good thing to help them understand that it's necessary. The more trust you build with your family or surrounding your homeschooling, the better it's going to be for your children also. You got a household you can allow your children to go to versus saying, well, this person doesn't believe in me homeschooling, and I got to worry about them sending them to the state. You know what I'm saying? So there's some real serious situation that could potentially happen if you're not careful with family or anybody else. Scroll down to number 7. All right. Number 7, never let them speak to your children, especially in private. Okay?
Ever. Ever. I taught my children, we tell our children all the time, I'm sorry to interrupt, do not speak to strangers at all. And the thing is, if you really pay attention to your children, especially our children, because they are around us so much, when they send these workers or whatever, 9 times out of 10, it's going to be somebody other than black. And so my children already know that is a sign right there. First of all, you don't look like anything and anybody that I really am around all day, every day. So they tend to clam up anyways. Our children are very shy. Stop pushing the children to talk to people all the time. Oh, hey, say hi. No, I don't care if we're at a grocery store. I don't push my children to talk. If they don't want to talk, do not push those children to talk. And if you do have children that are very talkative, just sit down. We have family meetings all the time just to explain and talk about loyalty and you know what I'm saying, not family secrets, but the importance of what it is that we're doing, and explain to the children why they don't want, us to educate ourselves, or what it would mean for them if we were smart, smart like we're supposed to be. Always instill in your children to remain loyal to family first.
All right, thank you for that, Sierra. Yeah, and again, if you got any insights you want to share during the process, feel free to do so. All right. And so I wanted to add on though to never let them speak to your children, especially in private. Again, the same thing with the emergency evacuation. When it comes to, let's say, a ad litem lawyer being applied to your case, that means that there's a private lawyer that the state's hired, like a public defender, for your child. And so if that person has to speak with your child, you leave the door open. Always prep your child to speak with these people. Let your child use it as a way to improve their public speaking. And also, it's like warfare. When you think about being interrogated, that's all it's going to be, right? So you have your child question them about white supremacy. That's a good thing.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, they want to talk to your child, and let's have a conversation. That's one of the things I did with my son, as far as suggesting to him, hey, ask him about why white people want to stop us from educating ourselves. Ask them questions that are going to make them question themselves. Why the hell are they in this house? Are they going to survive leaving? Are they going to ever leave this fucking house? You get what I'm saying? You want them to be scared the fuck out of their goddamn mind.
Exactly. Put up all your masks. Put up all your elders.
Definitely.
All that. I had an African mask.
Hey,
we used to play United Front. I kid you not, we used to play United Front, Tahir RBG. We had everybody from Malcolm to John Henrik Clark. We had all that stuff was around the house because that's just the way we decorate our house. Anyways, if you come in here, we straight up burning frankincense and myrrh. We got sage. I don't care what you think about me. They used to be scared to come in here.
That's how you gotta have them. See, this is all about building a black family, and so we gotta be strong, right? We're talking about celebrating college. He said somebody got to be strong. And being strong isn't about how strong we represent ourselves to each other sometimes. It has a lot to do with what we show our enemy we're not willing to take anymore. You know, and there's creative ways in doing that. And, yeah, you might piss them off, but, yo, you got to take a stand somewhere. Another thing to add on is, personally, it's the reason why I think when we're talking about all the areas of human activity, education should be the first and most important thing we fund and support, because if you don't teach anybody about the other areas of human activity, you're going to fucking lose, because no one's got the knowledge to achieve success in those areas. You get what I'm saying? So we got to start with the education as it relates to that. If they seek to get a lawyer for your child, let them. Don't complain. It's free. They're going to do it anyway. Okay? So there's an aspect of, depending on how far the potential for you to be brought to court is, some people, as I stated in the beginning, you might want to immediately get a lawyer if you have the dough to do that. If not, and the process continues on, even with you advocating and doing the things I said in the previous steps, they're going to get your child a lawyer anyway. You get what I'm saying? They're going to get you a lawyer anyway. So let them pay for that. You get what I'm saying? And you make those lawyers work. You make the lawyers work.
And whenever you do have a lawyer for your children, don't think that you can go to those people and complain about. They don't give a shit. The only thing I did with my children's my child's lawyer, I kept the conversation only about the child. Only about the child, because they're going to be reporting back to each other anyways. What did she say? Or what did he say? Or did they say anything? You know what I'm saying? No. Keep it always about the child. How is he doing? You talk to my child. I haven't been able to see him. How is he doing? How is she doing? Always keep it only about the children. So that way, if anybody has to report anything on you, you have always been about your child.
Yep. I was going to add on, there's a part of where, when I said if they send you, if they're going to get you a lawyer and you're going to get one also, you gotta manipulate that lawyer as best as you can. You know what I'm saying? And I'm saying that in the context of what you're not willing to do. You say the moment you know what the potential, what the charges are or what the accusation might be, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if we're talking about educational neglect, and then try to prove you don't have a right to educate your child, and you're neglecting your child by not letting them be schooled by white people, which is what educational neglect is. You have to prepare yourself, and so you want to manipulate this person. You don't want to give them enough information to make the case be over right away. I'm going to say that to say this. If they're going to take the time to bring this to trial, meaning if you're willing to take your case to trial, right, to prove your innocence and prove your right to educate your child, it's going to go to trial, right? You have to know that you're going to win. You have to decide that before you tell them you're taking it to trial. A lot of times parents aren't standing up for their children right away. And they're standing up for their children after. And it's not helping. You get what I'm saying? So this is based on preparedness. The sister, she unfortunately, based on the article, she didn't trust herself. She trusted herself to take the children out. She didn't trust herself to get prepared beforehand. And again, sometimes we step and make moves a little too fast. So again, this is very important. If you get to this point when you got the case, like you're going to be taking it to trial, you got to believe that you're going to win this case, and you also have to use everything that they have said against them. Most of the times, and I'll get to this at the end, you'll be able to really understand where their holes are at. Your lawyer that represents you generally might already see the holes too, but they're going to try to get you to compromise, period. You do not compromise for any lawyer that represents your child or you, even if it's supposed to be on your side.
And don't be afraid to drop them like a bad habit. Do not. Because I've been in the case, and do not be afraid. Don't be afraid, because guess what? Like, one can come, another one can come. You know what I'm saying? It's a free service any doggone way. Move out my way. You're not going to do what I need you to do, then move, because you have to remember they're working for you.
Yep. You have to treat them like a DCF worker. Yep.
And they're not going to give you information.
Another thing I wanted to add about those court-appointed lawyers are they meet with the state together. Now, they all don't meet with you, but they all meet with
they have lunch. They have lunch about you. They'll talk about you over lunch.
They have their court conferences as well. And so we're talking about the representatives for your side and the representatives for the other side and the state agency that's against you, right? They all have their own private conferences separate from the one you gotta have while you're trying to negotiate. So you really want to negotiate it, you know, and lie as much as you can. Definitely, and I'm saying that regarding if you're having your child out in different locations and stuff, you want to have a really good alibi for where your child might be, and they don't have to have anything to do with that. You can give them a dummy location. You can give them a dummy friend or family. They don't have to be actual friend or family. You know, we got people that are close to us like that in some cases. So you really want to be creative with that protection. All right. Have a backup plan for those people in case they got to move your child to somebody else's space. You got to do that. So you got to have a backup for your backup.
Now, sometimes all of this can cost some money, so it is very, very important that every time you can get a chance, I don't care if it's $5, I don't care if it's $2, always be putting something up in savings so that you can have that safety net to fall back on, because you never know. You may have to put your children on a bus. You may have to, get yourself on a plane. You may have to leave the state. You may have to get a car. You may have to do something. Whatever you are you're in the mindset of, I'm going to protect my children by any means necessary. And sometimes some of this can take funds. They may need to say, so put I don't have 100% of what you need. If I'm coming to you and I need $100, you know what I'm saying, but I only got 60, it's a whole lot easier for you to give me 40 than to come up with a whole 100, because I need to get my babies to safety.
Yep, definitely. And so I was going to say here, build your counter case independently and share limited info with your lawyer. Remember, you're being attacked for doing what you have a legal right to do. When I'm saying build your counter case independently, there are people like myself and others that have been fighting, period, no type of legal background or anything, and it's literally the knowledge and understanding of being at war that caused for me to have the victories I've had. It had nothing to do with anything else. I didn't have to pledge to no false nationality. Yes, I'm saying that. I didn't have to do anything but be African and at war, understand my history and how we got here. And so when I'm saying victory, I'm saying we got a lot of victories to gain before the big one. And this is one example to really certify yourself in this fight is to pull your children out of these schools and secure their safety. Because you don't – think about this. I think I mentioned this to you the other day. I was talking about school lockdown. And if your child is in a school and it's locked down and they're on a level of which they're attempting to – say your child can't leave, or you got to have a long period of time in which you're going to be separated, does your child understand what they might need to do to get out? You get what I'm saying? Because we got to prevent being caged in any form or format. And most of the time they say it's for what? Our own good. So we can't keep believing these just are false truths.
Yeah. It's a condition.
Number 8. I wanted to put this out there. This in most cases applies. nationally, I would suggest you check with your local state department of your state agency, DCF, Child Protective Services, whatever the acronym is. But number 8 says you're not obligated by law to communicate with state agencies regarding the education of your child after withdrawal. I'm saying that for a purpose, and I want to specify that. You're not obligated by law to communicate with state agencies regarding the education of your child after withdrawal. I'm saying that because even if you receive food stamps and medical services and your child's medical visits are up to date, right? And let's say you're working a job and you're a law-abiding citizen, right? As long as you have a high school diploma, in most cases, you have the legal right to educate your child. And if you don't, and you have an adult with a high school diploma, that person can be the person that educates your child. You get what I'm saying? We're talking about communicating. We're saying when a DCF worker comes to your doorstep and they start first with, do you homeschool your child? Or is you the parent of this child? And, of course I am. What the fuck is this about? You get what I'm saying? I almost knocked the damn DCF man out when he first came on my porch. You get what I mean? He felt I was being violent towards him. So I wanted him to feel that way, though. You get what I mean? You don't have to tell them anything. You can make the conversation about whatever you want it to be about. It's interrogation. If you're trying to beat the cops, let's say you chain to a table and they trying to pin something on you, you're going to try to have a conversation opposite of what direction they're trying to go in. Ask them questions. So instead of them asking you questions, you ask them questions. You know what? You came here. Why don't you answer some questions for me? Why the fuck are you here? That's the most important question you can ask them. Why are you here? I understand you're asking about my child or about me, or if I'm home, or if I'm schooling my child, or have they had their visits, or someone gave you a call, but why are you here? I need you to explain that to me, okay? And again, that's when we jump right back to, you don't start a conversation with any white person at your doorstep with any type of badge without your own fucking notebook and pen or pencil. You have to. You have to. It's not even like what people do when they say we're going to videotape a shooting. We're talking about documenting for the future reference, because you're going to survive you're going to survive this, but you're smart enough to know what you need to do to prepare yourself for the fight that seems to have begun at your doorstep. And so the rest of number 8 says no white person has more of a concern for your children than you. Never forget that. It doesn't matter who the fuck they are. It doesn't matter. If they don't look like you, say that again.
The black ones either. What they did, they found out, with my situation, they found out there's like, oh, so she's not going to talk to any white people, so they sent the black ones in to talk. And I just, every time I had a chance, I reminded him of how cool he was. You know what I'm saying? He used to get, you know what I'm saying? You have to talk to them like what they are. You are master's boy or girl or whatever you want to call yourself, and you're coming here to do the job that they sent you to do. I don't trust you, and I need you to know that too. Just because you are black on the, you know what I'm saying, on the outside does not mean that you don't have a Caucasian mind. And I'm gonna talk to you like a coon ass nigga, just like you are.
Exactly. I had them. They switched up on me one time with a black woman. I ate her ass up. I said, you know what? You know you shouldn't even be doing this. So from now on, just leave your card at my door. I'm not even talking to you anymore. So she visited. She left her card. She didn't even bother knocking because I vowed I wasn't talking to her anymore. Just don't even come to my. I'm not going to communicate with you. So just leave your card so I know you came. And I'll document that. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
So number nine. If it goes to court, seek an immediate dismissal. No one can prove your child is or is not getting an education that is not actually participating in their education. And isn't that's the obvious thing, right? So do you have any crackers sitting at your table in the morning when you're eating breakfast and the children are reading or going over their writing? No.
Nope. Not even on the cereal.
So what argument do they really have? Unless we give them
all
one.
speculation. All
Exactly.
speculation.
It can only be speculation. It can only be speculation. There's no need. Again, you're not legally bound to show them anything, because usually the people who are coming to your door and trying to take your children, they have nothing to do with school. They have nothing to do with education. Even though they have degrees, they have nothing to do with creating curriculums or running your own home economics or business for your child or wilderness skills training or none of that. The stuff that
it's
we do.
It's about compensation.
Exactly. So they don't have any direct experience related to the experience of the client that they come in contact with. That's just a given. Black Power, who's on the line? Who's that?
That's Brother Dondre. I had to call back in. I couldn't talk or do nothing, so I had to call.
Oh yeah, I just seen that. I see your screen up, but your voice wasn't showing. But I hear you, brother. What's good?
I'm doing all right. Trying to
Hey man, you had any
questions, but yeah. First, I wanted to ask when y'all was saying that don't tell them where your children's at. Do you have to let them know where your children's at all?
Nope.
Okay.
Whatever information you give them, let's just say you building streets. If you're gonna lay that road out, you gotta be willing to ride that motherfucker out so that you win at the end. Because if not, they're gonna use that road for an access for themselves. You know what I'm saying? What I did, let me give you an example. I had a situation where I had my child, I had the emergency backup plan where he had different routes to leave the home if the house was being surrounded. Meaning, because if based on how we was living, we was on a second floor home, so we could see from 3 different angles on the block anybody coming, so he'd get out before they would even kick the door down. You know what I'm saying? And so, him having to have some place to go, we have people in the community that shuttled him away from my house. So those were the initial people, right? Then he got shuttled to another house where we met up with him. You get what I'm saying? So it was like on some. It was really like that. So it's better they don't know too much about your child at all, what your child does. If you're homeschooling them, you want to make it as simple as, yes, I'll homeschool my child. That's it. If they request some documentation, they need a subpoena. They need a court order.
Because I'm sorry, because the question that they're asking literally is, are you homeschooling your child? Not what color shoes he wear, what is his favorite books, what are you teaching? Are you homeschooling? Yes, I am. Close the door.
Hey, you want to know the ill shit I did? How about this? My case went on for almost a year, right? They didn't the outside of the lawyer, right? My lawyer and actually I don't even think my lawyer saw Mikey. Outside of my son's court-appointed lawyer, they didn't see my son. The DCF worker didn't ever see my son. Didn't know what he looked like. So we had my son in disguises and stuff. You know what I mean? He didn't even know what he looked like. Never let him see your child physically. No sight. And so you can't that's why I'm saying, like, move your child out by nighttime. Like, if you do things, I'm telling you how serious it was for me, so I'm just sharing the experience. It was so serious where, like, we go out at night instead of during the day. You know what I'm saying? My son was out the house for almost 2 weeks in another person's house. You get what I mean? And then those people I had to trust to not snitch.
And that's what I was going to say. I don't know, with my queen being from Ghana, she has a kind of extensive network spread it out where we can stash our little ones and they won't know where the fuck they at or who really got them, because, you know, you can't really trace all the different connections she got. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
So
and they ended up tracing one of them. Like when I gave the example, my son was in the house and they was visiting the house on a lead. Like somebody said, hey, you know, his family live over there, you know, maybe he might be over there. They went there, you know, my family, hey, you can come inside, hey, look around. My son was in a whole different part of where you couldn't even. There's no way you would find him if you was looking for him, like searching. You know what I mean? But you gotta have people that's that prepared, and you gotta make sure the people you trust are up to date on what you're going through or what the risk you might be facing is. You know, it's that serious. Stakeout. You know what I'm saying?
It's why it's important to know people.
Yeah, it's important to build relationships, man. Like, Brother Bourne helped me get my son out the house, out the community. He was the first person that my son had to bounce, jump the fence, do the quote unquote wrap around move, all the holes, everything, right? And end up Brother Bourne on an emergency tip, like, yo, I need you to take my son in right now. They coming to my house. They at my door. They banging on the door. I need to move him now. You get what I'm saying? And so I wanted to go back to something real quick, Brother Dondre, related to the sister's case that had the children taken. They're saying, you know, she was a single mom and she didn't have full custody of her child, right? You hear me?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, so the chances of they might be right, because if you're not married, if you don't get legal physical custody of your child, full custody, you and the person you have that child with have joint legal custody.
Okay.
You understand? So again, this is what I learned from experience and seeing that some people was like, how she don't have full custody of her child? Because she didn't make the child by herself. So by law, the mother, there's no way one parent could be have full custody unless they go to court to give that custody away to the other parent.
And so even if one parent is not there.
Even if one parent is not there, if they sign that birth certificate, y'all split that child in half.
That's what I was about to ask.
If you sign the birth certificate, you and that woman have ownership of that child equally. Until someone gives full custody to either side. And so a part of what I was saying in step one was, when you're talking about homeschooling your child, you want to really know who's on your side and who's not. You know? There's situations where sisters don't have to be worried about homeschooling their children and stuff, but that don't mean the state can't use that against you like it did with this sister. Like, shit, yeah, maybe she does. Maybe her kids do have a father that's not in their life, right? Or not alive. Who knows, right? But they're using her joint custody status to justify further interaction with her also. So I presented this early in the conversation where the man, if he's alive, he literally can come in to Child Protective Services as the other half, pass a piss test, and then be qualified to take the children into his custody. The mother already having the charges brought forth against her nullifies her as being capable to have the children in her custody until the case is resolved.
But at least she know where they at.
Yeah, but if it's a nigga that she don't, she might be protecting her kids from him. You know what I'm saying? Even in that case, meaning if there ain't no damn records on him doing anything, but she knows she don't mess with him for a reason, or he's not in the children's life for a reason, that same person can still be the only person that the state will be willing to work with to keep the kids away from her.
That's what I'm
saying. So then what would you suggest that they do? Because I just want to make sure, because I'm, you know what I'm saying, I want to be one of those, and I'm planning on being a homeschooling mother that, you know, I'm married, but I still want to be able to help my sisters out. Even though you may not be married like I am, it doesn't mean that you can't be safe or just as safe as I am. So I want to know, like, how can I support them? I don't want to go around and be like, oh, you single? Get him off your birth certificate. Are you single? Did you go to court? You know what I'm saying? You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to be like that, but what would you suggest to a woman who is single, you know what I'm saying, or how would I, you know what I'm saying, a married woman talk to a woman that is single and want to homeschool her children? Is that something that I would bring up first as a support, you know?
Yeah, support is first. What kind of relationships or connections does she have with people, you know, in her immediate support network? You know, I think there's like even like I could call it a stress test. Like we gotta be doing with each other out here. You know what I'm saying?
When you file that paperwork, right? You gotta have of course you sign off on it. If both parents sign off, even if the other parent is not there, if both parents sign off, that removes that argument, doesn't it?
Yep, that'll remove the argument. Yep. Because
so that's what you're saying. Like if you talk to him, I'm sorry to cut you, but if she was, like, say if the sister was to talk to the brother talk to the sister, and either one of those parents are going to go sign that child out of school, it would help to see if you could get that other parent to sign as well.
If possible, or just write a notarized letter stating that you agree with your child being homeschooled. Because like I said,
okay, so then that way they can see that both parents, okay, even though they're not, because you know what I'm saying, I don't want it to be no shit where, you know, somebody like.
I think it's something that, I think even with, I mean, outside of like physical risk for the woman or the man and vice versa with interaction, I think it's worth communicating for the purpose of the child education, because the parent who's choosing to do so needs the support. They don't need, you know, it's about the child. It's not about either one of them. So I know relationships and things like that might permit for a person to start it without informing that person. You know, I told my son's mom I was going to educate him, you know, and I had physical custody of him, joint legal custody, because I chose not to take full custody. And so in my situation, I had to communicate with the person to get, you know, their support and let them know why it's so important. But they didn't. That didn't immediately require that person to sign anything, because I was a custodial parent that they agreed to have me as. You know, when I got joint legal custody, physical custody, that parent agreeing with me to have him in my custody merited me homeschooling him, because I was fully responsible for his education. He's under my roof. It's the ones that's not in the household. It's the ones that's not in the household and who aren't involved that you got to be concerned about. That's all I'm saying. And at different times, relationships with kids, you might, you know, I myself know there might be months or situations where I might not communicate or see my son based on distance. But living closer, it was based on differences. You get what I'm saying? And so there's nothing I could do about that. I might wanna help his mother homeschool him. I'm talking about my younger son. I might have wanted to support her in homeschooling him, but she might believe in the school system so much that she's gonna keep me from giving him any education. So that'll limit interaction. So let's say something happens and I got opportunity to get custody of my child, you know, let's say it's justified, I would do so, and I'd be obligated to do so. But there's some people who might use that as a way to play yo-yo with the kid. That's what I'm saying. And I'm saying that is possible. People might use the child as a token and use the other parent having an investigation as a way to get into into their household, see what's going on. So I mean, that's just real. That's a real world situation we're dealing with. I mean, I had that too. All centered around homeschooling. All of it. So part of the reason why I created this was because the basis of it was based on my own personal experience. The research I did was allowed for me to even first successfully protect my child, but then being able to reflect back on it would allow for me to come up with these particular points, you know. And so the sister situation coming up is what prompted me to really share this with family, you know. I am recording it, so eventually I'm going to make sure that it's available, but I'm trying to circulate this document so that we can really get serious about educating, because again, it's fun, but you know, you still educating in a certain level of confines, you know what I'm saying? You know, there was a question a brother put out, is it it smart as a business person to promote African-centered businesses? Meaning if you're trying to get money, right? And so somebody say, it depends on the business. But I'm like, if you're doing something black, you're doing it for the money. You're gonna get your money regardless. You know what I'm saying? It might not be about trying to be a glutton. Everybody don't have to buy my shit. You know what I'm saying? Some people like that. And that's the approach we gotta take when we're trying to protect our children and with their education in the future. We gotta really be that serious. Where we gotta be uncompromising. And stop being so damn friendly.
I would think the approach would have to be with the individual. I mean, like, it might be easier for some sisters to get the brother just to sign off on, homeschool the kid. Some if nigga ain't there, then 9 times out of 10, nigga ain't gonna give a fuck anyway.
Yeah, that's my point. So she ain't got to worry about that, but she got to be aware of the state. Depending if they get involved, they're gonna be trying to get in contact with them. And
if she already has it on paper, look, he signed off on this already. So y'all can call him, do whatever the fuck y'all want to do. Yeah, we won. We united. Even if you're not, we united. Exactly. You know what I'm saying? Because my case was taking the trial all the way because what happened was they started communicating with his mother, and then trying to offer her stuff in order to fight me in court about educational neglect and a lot of, you know what I'm saying? So what ended up happening was when I showed her, they was trying to like take him and explain to her this, and my wife, we all as a family came together and communicated. We went to court as one, and we won, and it was thrown out, and we asked for dismissal. There was no grounds to bring us to trial over trying to prove we not together as a family, as a two parents of a child we love.
And it was about the unity.
And me and her was beefing the whole time because there was a lack of support. But at the end of the day, it didn't really matter because when she saw what my child was being faced with, why would we need to be fighting if we're trying to protect him? You get what I'm saying? It's already gone too far. You get what I mean? And so I don't think it's gonna be an issue if it's a single mother and the guy he's not even involved in things like that. That's not, you know what I mean? Usually when you fill out the form at the school, it's like a basic questionnaire. Some forms have just a check-off box while you're taking your child out, homeschooling. You can sign, you can have somebody else sign that's a guardian of the child, meaning if you're married and have a husband, you know what I'm saying? So, I mean, there's things like that. Some people adopt the children of the girlfriends or vice versa, so you can do that too. I mean, there's a lot of different ways. I'm only saying that in case they're trying to use you being the only accessible parent. They might say, well, where's the father at? What's the father's name? Is he locked up? They might want to know all that shit. And if you don't tell them, then that's going to help you. So that means they got to go look for that motherfucker if they want him. You know what I'm saying? Because you never know who's the reason why they're at your door in the first place.
I'm glad you brought that up because that's what I was thinking. Like, what honestly, what initially brought them to her door? And we may never know, you know what I'm saying? But I would love if you could, talk about some things that we can do, not that it's in secret, not that we're in hiding, but things that we can do not to necessarily bring any attention to us to begin with. Like homeschooling ain't, you know what I'm saying? I'm going to sit down all day and I'm going to let the children just run around. Oh, nah. You you got to have it, some sort of structure. You know what I mean?
Hey, you know how hard I was going, right? We lived on the second floor and had a porch, right? I had the RBG flag hanging from my porch. So motherfuckers knew what was going on. You know what I'm saying?
I'm talking about you know what I'm saying? As far as keeping them around you. Keeping them around you.
I was going to say you got to be private. It's best you don't let anybody know about what you're doing in your household. And it goes as far as the school. If you're making your home a school, you got to treat it like you got to give it the same level of importance that the cracker might do with his school. You got to have lockdown mode. You got to know, You know what I'm saying? At least with regards to copying something of the cracker, I'm saying in that capacity. You know what I mean? Like, we really got to be real secure with it and treat it like it's a fortress. You know what I'm saying? Shit, even when you're talking about homeschooling and people want to move different places, you need to look at your location if it's a place that's equipped to help you get in and out and have your family secure outside of being fucking comfortable or nice. You get what I'm saying? That type of shit's important. And so a second floor apartment for me at the time was beneficial because we was close to the corner of the that particular block and we can see it everywhere. We can go to the back of the apartment and see out the back door to the other block behind us and all those corners. So we could see more than they thought they were seeing. And don't think nobody watches your house. You know, and it really only takes a person saying, oh, they teaching their kids that African revolutionary black power shit. That's all they fucking need to hear. So you want to be limited. If you want to dress it up, you can say, well, I'm teaching a Montessori style homeschool method with my children at home, some shit like that. You know what I'm saying? Don't tell it it's African. Not saying you got to be ashamed of it, but you share certain information with people that need to know it. You can't sleep how ignorant our people are. That's my, you know. Because the thing is, it's going to be somebody close to you, right, usually. And then it's just like calling the white folks on you.
That'll only be if you opening your house up to other people, right? If you just doing your own thing just with your own kids, you don't got to tell nobody shit what you teach.
You ain't got to tell nobody nothing. You ain't got to tell nobody nothing. But you want to be aware of what enemies you got around. You got to be aware of what
don't let them go walking all over the place either.
I'll give you an example. If you got nosy neighbors, right? For example, my nosy neighbors at that time like to talk to police, period. Just like, hey, you know, the cop pulls up on the street. Hey, man, how you doing? You get what I'm saying? So you got to be aware of that nosy-ass neighbor. Not saying you don't do what you're going to do, but be aware of the kind of people you got around you, even if they don't know you, because people are afraid of shit like that. You know, so again, it's how you do it. It's just more so being aware of your surroundings. You know what I'm saying? You want to know about the culture of your environment. And I lived in again, when me and Brother Bourne, you know, I lived around the corner from Brother Bourne. You know, New Haven's a violent ass city. You know what I mean? So thinking I lived in the hood was gonna help. It did have its protections because a lot of people aren't gonna talk. You know what I'm saying? A lot of people aren't that nosy.
The type of state it is, though.
Huh?
Like the type of state it is, though.
Yeah.
I think put more pressure on your ass about the schooling, because I don't think I have as much here, being that I'm in Atlanta. I don't think I have as much issue homeschooling here as I would if I was still in New York or up in Connecticut or something.
That's correct. But I wanted to add something to that. You got up north, they got the teachers' unions. You know what I'm saying? So there's a whole different system. You get what I mean? And Connecticut is more lenient than South Carolina because they don't have they don't have any homeschool law.
None.
There's no law preventing you from. You can start a fucking metaphysics homeschool association co-op up there, and no one's gonna fuck with you if you're white.
Mm-hmm.
In Connecticut.
So basically they have no curriculum restrictions or regulations up there.
No.
No.
Wow.
No.
That's what helped me get started.
But what I think, Mike, I think people need to understand is, like, I didn't know until you explained to me that box, because what they'll do, they'll try to slide you that paperwork and you thinking that you have to check that box, but it's completely voluntary. It's a box that you don't have to check, but some people do check this because they don't know better, and it says that they can come and see what you're doing, or they can check in on you every year, whenever they feel like it.
Yeah.
But a lot of people don't understand that is completely voluntary. I remember when I filled out my paperwork, I gave it to the girl. She came back. She said, "Oh, you didn't sign this. Oh, you didn't check this box." I said, "Yes, because it's voluntary," and I chose not to. So no, you don't have to have them check in with you. You don't have to give anybody any information. As a matter of fact, the law up here, yes, the law here says even if your child is in school, you still are responsible for educating your child. So even if they're in public school, so you may as well. If you're in Connecticut and you're black and you're not homeschooling, I want to know why.
Yeah. And so I wanted to throw the last two out. That was number 10, and that was you have a legal right to educate your child. There are no statutes preventing you from doing so and no degree required, meaning that you are the child's first teacher. Usually, I mean, it varies. Some states have these loose laws. I'll give you an example, like South Carolina. You have the right to homeschool, but they have a tier system. So they want you to be associated with a homeschool association. So you pay somebody $35, you get a little ID card, and it says that you're in that association. Now, where we lucked out, and this is something for anybody that might move to a different state and still continue to homeschool, if you plan on homeschooling your children, you don't have to inform that state you move to that you're going to be homeschooling your child, which means they don't have to be registered with the state in any form or fashion. Okay? I'm saying that because what allows them to tie in or justify educational involvement is your child being in the system there in the first place. And so that's another important tip. When I moved down here, I found that what creates the requirement for me to have to register for a homeschool association is actually being registered with the school district. So if I don't register with the school district, then I can continue to homeschool as I would. So there's certain loopholes and things like that in certain states that's worth checking out. Because for me personally, if you're telling me I don't have to take any state tests and I can teach what I want, then I shouldn't have to say shit to you. You know what I mean? Like, something to add on for number 11 was teach your child about the system and the process they may be taking place so they can be armed with knowledge. I'm saying that because a lot of times we want to sugarcoat shit for our children. And the realest thing I ever did as a father was to decide to take my firstborn and teach him about the world as early as possible and let him know what the situation is we're dealing with. And so if I didn't do that, we would be at a different place. I personally would be at a different place and he would be at a different place. And I'm glad we're where we're at because of the decisions I made and what he continues to demonstrate since being homeschooled. I think that's important to allow yourself to watch your child grow. Most of the times the person has the children in the school system for just as long as they are at work. And so you really aren't watching the growth of your child during the day. You know, you're really watching them go to sleep, wake up and eat, go to sleep, wake up and eat, you know, for a large period of the year before you really get to enjoy the summer or whatever holiday vacations the school system might allow. So when you decide to homeschool, just know that it's something that that's about rebuilding the black family. I think it's extremely important. And so the last quote and comment was, this information is relevant for our families living in states that have no or very limited homeschool laws preventing parents from educating. This is to be used as a tool. Now, based on me saying that, the assumption would be that these things you need to worry about based on the state being against homeschooling. This is based on states that allow or have no homeschooling laws. You know? So, again, this is why I think it's extremely important to focus on security, because we take for granted some of the things that we're allowed to do, and we mistake them as a privilege and don't take it as an offense to our enemy. And I think, you know, saying, I'm not putting your brain in my skull, you know, that's what it is. And yeah, you ain't getting my baby's brain, you know. Yeah, so I mean, anybody got any questions, man? I'm glad I was able to do this and record it so that others are able to receive this information. Hopefully I'll keep doing these because I think it's important to kind of keep this reoccurring. Since I anticipate more people choosing to homeschool, I think it's important that we are properly, or at least putting ourselves in the right mind. if you need a copy of this, you can contact me at goldenhoureducation@gmail.com. I'll forward you this. You can change it however you need to change it, depending on where your location at. Some of these things might or might not apply, or how your situation might be. Again, if you are an affluent African American, it still doesn't mean you can't get your child taken due to educational neglect charges in regards to your homeschooling your child. So nobody black is exempt. The purpose of this, again, was about us being African in America in homeschooling and the security protocol provided by the Golden Hour. So Black Power, everybody. I'm logging off, and we'll build later on.